See you in Kuala Lumpur. The latest from podnews.net with co-host, powerful podcast hosting for agencies and brands. Podcast Day Asia has been announced in Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia on September the 6th. A preliminary schedule has been announced and features Pod News writer Guanjin Yo, our editor James Cridland, that's me, Podbean's Norma Jean Belenki and others. It's part of the Radio Days Asia conference. Westward One and Signal Hill Insights have released data suggesting that the fourth largest podcast platform is Facebook. The surprising data comes from surveying 608 weekly podcast consumers and asking them which of the following places do you use the most to access the podcasts you listen to. Facebook doesn't have a podcast player. The researchers suggest that it's where they see promotion for podcasts rather than actually listen to them. Apple has enhanced the search tools on Apple Podcasts, adding 9 subcategories, recommendations and language searches in selected countries. The Paris Podcast Festival is crowdfunding for its 6th event in October. Spotify has redesigned its desktop app. Acast has launched Acast Plus Access, which gives any company with an existing paid subscription offering the ability to add exclusive podcast benefits. UK lobby group Radio Centre has unveiled a new logo and design. The group promotes audio owned and operated by commercial radio broadcasters, including podcasts and on-demand streaming services. A new place to distribute your podcast? In-game audio. Europa Universalis 4 has integrated 2 podcasts into the China and Japan expansion packs. Audio Hijack has added new features, a parametric EQ, speech denoise and an FIR filter. The owner of the iHeart Podcast Network Australia, ARN Media, has bought a 14.7% share of its competitor SCA, which owns Listener. Media ownership laws mean it can't own more than 15%. The Cyberwire has published a free ebook, The B2B Marketer's Guide to Podcast Advertising, and congratulations to Joe Rogan, who has just published episode 2000 of his podcast. The show with Duncan Trussell is marked as containing views about COVID-19. In People News, David Meher Roberts has been appointed as a board advisor to Bristol-based branded podcast production company 1860. And in podcast news from Red Bull, Mindset wins first season, which unlocks the mental tactics used by leading sports professionals and shows how we can apply the same techniques to our daily lives. Contained shows that were under 15 minutes, so a lot of great content was left on the cutting room floor. Uncut are new episodes in the feed that give you the raw, unfiltered shows, and they're available now. The Sound Off podcast has Katie Law as a guest this week, the editor of Pod the North. Katie and host Matt Kundle spoke in depth about the growth of podcasts in Canada, their disjointed start, and the challenges Indigenous podcasters face. Inside Criminal Justice with Jeff Clayton is new from the American Bail Coalition. The Media Mix is new from veteran journalist Claire Atkinson. And a new season of horror drama podcast Undertow has been released. What happened all those years ago in the old abandoned well now returns to threaten Lizzie and her entire world. It'll be released weekly. The show is from Realm. This podcast is sponsored by Co-Host and Quill. Agencies and brands need better podcast analytics. Discover companies that listen to your podcast, where downloads are coming from, and how listeners are resonating with Co-Host. cohostpodcasting.com. And that's the latest from our newsletter. To read all the stories and subscribe, we're at podnews.net.